First and foremost, thank you so much for even agreeing to come on the Regular People podcast. It's super exciting because this is something that I created so that I could hear stories from different people and just kind of, understand just different perceptions of reality that we all kind of experience. But oftentimes, you don't necessarily get a chance to hear everyone's perspective that you come across in just regular life. Fortunately, I've actually spoken with you a few times, just on, different conversations here and there. But there was one in particular that I was like, okay, that I knew for sure. I was like, okay, I'm going to ask her to be on the podcast.
Which
eventually.
was it?
It was the one where I was talking to you about my son, and I was talking about I lost my niece in October, and just kind of how it was affecting him, or how we are working or living, around that situation. But then you just kind of gave me this energy that was like, okay, you reminded me of my sister, and she was actually the one who had lost her daughter that I was telling you about. And she just has this spirit that is just really calming, and she's a psychologist, so that might be why she's like that. But you had a similar,
thanks,
you had
Miles.
a similar feeling. I was like, yes.
No psychologist, but I'll take it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast today. One of the things that I think also interests me about just having a conversation with you was you've spoken kind of briefly like about your relationship and having a son and how some challenges come up. You haven't gone like into specific challenges, but I know you kind of mentioned some things about school and I'm like, man, I would love to dive into some of those kind of nuances in the parenting space.
We were digging through that literally before I got here, so let's go.
So yeah, the first question that I want to ask is kind of controversial, and I think a lot of us, or at least a lot of men, particularly Black men, in the communities that we come from, a lot of times it's a known statement that parents of the opposite sex. Parents have a hard time parenting children of the opposite sex, especially if they're single parents. For me, it was more so like a mom can't raise a boy to be a man. That was a statement that I heard. But I'm interested to see, like, what do you think about that?
I don't think it's she cannot raise a boy to be a man. I think the journey to teach him how to be a man is a lot harder. Because she's a woman. God sent Adam and God sent Eve. Sorry, we're going to go right in there.
Let's do it. So what makes you feel like you're qualified to even give a statement on this particular subject?
I am a single mom. My son is Jaden. He is a 10-year-old Virgo, high energy, very headstrong / stubborn boy. Young man, whichever you want to say. And let me be clear, I am a single mom, but I have an amazing community, right? And I think a lot of times that gets misconstrued and that's not always acknowledged. But my child's father, he lives in another state. So here, as far as like my parenting journey, it's me and Jaden. We've been holding it down since 2013. That's when he was born. And so it has been the two of us. And I always say, you never have it all together. Literally every year of your child's life, it's like you're starting a new grade and it doesn't stop. So it's like you think like, wow, like if there's a parent and their child is like 2-3 years old and, they look to parents who have either multiple kids or their child is like 10, 12, 13, you think like they have it all together, but like 13 is a new level. They hit 14, it's a new level. 15, we've unlocked puberty. Like, it is a new level as you go. And so I wouldn't say I'm like qualified to speak on it, but I have 10 years of parenting experience. I'm on level 10 is how I view it. Level 11 is coming up. So
so I mean, that's big. So you have a 10-year-old.
Yep.
So what grade grade is that?
Jaden, he will be starting the 5th grade this fall.
5th grade. Okay. So that's really cool. Does he like get into different activities outside of school?
Yeah, so he's in all the things. He's in football, he's in soccer. He just started football with pads this year, so that's like a really big deal for him. He's in soccer, he's in flag football, he's in and out of basketball. He is in like acting, loves music, in theater. He typical video games. Like he kind of has his hands in all the pots.
That's cool. Yeah, he's all around. That's dope. That's dope. I think the thing that, and I have 2 kids myself, and my son, and I'm married as well. Simple stuff. But
No big deal.
No big deal.
Because I'm not married and I don't have 2 kids, and that's not simple. I'm like, I'm not having any more.
Right.
And golly.
But, one of the things that I think that interests me the most about the conversation or the topic of single parents is that I come from a single parent.
Okay.
I was raised by my mom, and she raised 5 kids.
Wow.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a trooper for sure. But in terms of like parenting, in terms of, I guess, raising me to understand what it means to be a man.
Yeah.
I think that she would say she struggled in that area for a variety of different reasons. When I was around 10 or 9, that's when I think my parents split up. I was in the 5th grade, actually.
Okay.
Now that I think about it. Yeah, I was in the 5th grade. That's cool. Okay. But I think at that point, she started to realize that there were, I think, a lot of challenges that comes with raising a young man.
Yeah.
And there were 2 girls and three boys in my family. So
Okay.
I kind of had it a little bit easier because I had older brothers. But I'm interested in, like, what challenges have you found yourself facing just trying to be, that strong support system for a young man?
I think the first one is just, and I don't know if it's a challenge or just breaking societal norms, especially within the African American families or households. There are some subjects or things that, like, you don't talk about, or if you bring it up, it's like, we don't talk about that. Like, the mom was always quick to fuss about something. So, like, knowing that I was a single mom with Jaden, like, I've always wanted to create an atmosphere, an environment where he feels safe to communicate whatever it is, whether that was, someone picking on him at school, or whether that's him calling me into the bathroom and telling me he has his first pubes. True story. And, like, in those moments, I am like, I can't freak out. I'm like, I have to take deep breaths and be like, yeah, bud, you got hair growing down there. Like, this is why we got to shower good. This is why mom tells you to wash your penis. We use scientific, like, the real terms. Yeah, like, we don't say, like, whatever a nickname. No, I need you to know what it's called. This is why, I tell you to wash those areas, because hair creates scent and odor, and right, like, trying to use those as, like, lessons versus, like, sweeping it under the rug of like, oh, we don't talk about that, or don't show that to anybody, or let's just keep that to yourself, like, being dismissive. So I would say that's been, like, the first, I don't know if it's just a struggle, like I said, but, like, learning as I reach new levels. The other one is just natural with boys, men. It doesn't matter how old you are, like, they're headstrong. As they're learning who they are, what they want to do, what they like to do, what they don't like to do. I can say something and you can say something, and it's going to come across very different. Yeah. The bass and the tone, we still both could be communicating it out of love. And I feel like Jaden, he is reaching a place where there are some things you can hear my voice. It's even when I'm mad, I still sound friendly. And so Jaden, he is reaching that place where he needs male energy. He needs male presence. And I'm very grateful for my current boyfriend who's come into my life. He's been able to be that. But for example, he's in football practice. Me, as a woman, being there at football practice, standing on the sideline, watching him, could care less, right? And he has his moments where he'll wave at me and be like, hey, Mom. And it's like still really cute. But my boyfriend being a male in that space and being able to like talk to him and give him feedback or just, you know, letting him know how practice was, it's going to come across different for me. It's like, good job, bud. I don't really know how to explain it except of like the yin and yang of what men and women provide that can make it hard raising a child of the opposite sex.
And you know, I think, I think that's a really good point. Like men and women, or at least I've come to see it, men and women offer different things. And I think that as I've grown up, I used to think that, and I used to have arguments with my sister all the time because me and my sister, we have these little, we call ourselves intellectuals to some extent, and we always kind of like butt heads. Sometimes I agree with her. Sometimes I don't, but I just love getting on her nerves with stuff. But men and women, I think, like I said, they offer different things. But I used to believe that a woman could not raise a boy to be a man. And I think a lot of society would kind of follow that sentiment, or at least grew up with that sentiment, because women and men do different things.
Right.
And I think they operate in different roles.
Right.
And I hate to say gender roles, but I think we all kind of know they exist.
Right.
We're trying to move from those, but you know, we can't help what we were raised
I
in.
think a woman can raise a man to know how to treat a woman. Because Jaden and I, we can go out on dates together and I can say, hey, open my door. Or I can give him my debit card and I'm like, hey, it's time for you to pay. And he can pull it out of his pocket and act like he's paying. Or I can show him, you know, I can explain and walk him through different things of how to treat a woman. Because at this point, I'm not raising him for me. I'm raising him for whatever other woman he's going to encounter in his life. Whether that's his old middle school girlfriend, his high school girlfriend, his future wife. That's who I'm raising my son for. Which I can do because I'm a woman, right? So I can show him how to treat another woman. But I can't show him how to be a man because I'm not a man.
So hold on. So you don't agree that a woman can show a boy how to be a man, or can?
You can't. Embark on, call those other family members. The uncles that I'm really close with my dad. Me and my dad are best friends. And we'll joke. Me and my dad, we joke about everything. But I'm like, you really need to spend more time with your grandbaby. And he will have spent all the time in the world with him. But it's just me constantly putting out there, I need Jaden around you.
But why do you feel that way? Like, why do you feel that you couldn't raise your son into being a man or a successful man, whatever you deem
I
to
feel
be
like
successful?
I can raise him to be the best human that he can possibly be.
We can end the podcast right there. Not yes, I mean, I love that statement, because what I was gonna say, like, in the past I believed that a woman could not raise a man, but as I've grown older, I've seen that sometimes a lot of times men can't raise the boys to be men.
Ooh, I just got chills.
Looking at this and understanding that men sometimes don't raise boys into men.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to say that a woman can't do that successfully.
I don't think that either gender was meant to do it alone. Because there are men who are, having to raise daughters by themselves. Because the mom, she might be present, but she's not as present as she should be. And you have some phenomenal single fathers who are figuring out co-parenting, but they're doing a lot of the legwork with their baby girls. And like, not to say they can't raise their daughters to be, again, amazing humans, but they weren't meant to do that job by themselves. Because there are just certain things that a young girl is going to need to know and learn and pick up that her dad can't show her. And I think when you, like, it goes both ways, and it goes back to the yin and yang. Like, you aren't supposed to have one without the other.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And that's what I would kind of sum that up to. Like, as much as I know that people want to be independent and maybe a relationship might not be for you at that time, I think one of the most important things that a child can have growing up is stability. And relationships that help them to develop, a variety of different aspects.
Right.
But I think a lot of, it's like it gets kind of split in half. It's like, man, I'm going to learn this from my mom. I'm going to learn this from my dad.
Right.
And even if we take away mom and dad and replace that with role models.
Right.
It's like, I'm going to learn this from this woman.
I was about to say that,
or this
like,
from this man. Yeah.
Even if, you, like you said, you feel like your dad was a terrible communicator. Like, I won't say anything because co-parent may be dicey, and there's usually something that you feel like the other party is always lacking that frustrates you when you're a single parent.
And let me correct myself, because if my dad somehow sees this, I'm not saying that you're just bad at communicating. I'm saying in terms of, like, empathy and in terms of hearing the other side.
Yeah. He struggles with that. It's okay, Dad.
We got to work. We got to work on that. But that's a conversation that we're going to have at some point.
But when you know that the other parent party, whoever you're co-parenting with, is lacking in a specific area, that's when I feel like it's your job as parents to place your child within a community of people to where they can get what they need. And you having the awareness of, like, I can't teach everything to my child. Like, God didn't put me here to teach everything to my child. Like, that's why they say it takes a village, because it takes more than the mother and the father that birthed the person for the child to get all the gems that they need to know to be successful. So I think having that awareness as a single parent, a parent in general, is just important.
What do you feel makes parenting, or as a single parent, what makes it difficult not having a community like behind you? Because a lot of parents don't have. I grew up in a sense of poverty, let me say that. And in terms of community, the men in my community were not, they were not the type of men that I would want my child.
So when I use the term community, it's not literally like your neighborhood community. It's your tribe. Whoever you deem as, like, family, whoever you deem, and that's blood or not blood, whoever you deem as close to you, who Jaden has so many aunts and a few friends of mine that, they call themselves, like, Uncle Blank, and it's like, that's community, right? It's knowing, like, those people that you connect with in life, that God has sent you, that you can intentionally surround yourself with, that you can surround your child with to help raise them. That's how I view community, because you're right. A house down the street, few blocks around the corner, that community could be a hotmess.com. And you don't want your child growing up around them.
and I think that's extremely important, because, or at least an extremely important point, because, like I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with independence,
Right.
in terms, parent independence. I know some parents who don't want to get advice from their, from the child's grandparents, and I can get that, because I'm the same way in a lot of ways. But I think we undermine the importance of building like a stable community. And, I think even politically, this is, really, I think, unfortunately, a controversial topic that people can have opinions about.
Yeah.
But, I think the reality of it is that family structure and community structure are, in a lot of ways, under attack right now because more people don't want to engage in community. More people are siloed at home, and children are siloed, in the games or even they can be siloed in sports, because for me, I didn't really play video games, but I was super siloed when it came to playing sports, where it's like I didn't care about anything else other than the sport that I was playing. So how have you, tried to get or try to invite more community, for your child, for your son, to kind of combat those things that you don't feel that you can give to your son?
I would say I'm an Enneagram 7.
Mm-hmm. Explain that to the people.
7 is all about positivity, optimism, adventure. Let's take something depressing and make it a good time.
Okay, that's a good one.
Let's take the mundane and figure out how we can have fun with it. Like there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and the glass is always half full, never half empty. That's just our perspective on it. So being like a true Enneagram 7 to the core, I am the person in my family that's like, family to the east, family to the west, family from the north, family from the south. Hey, y'all, let's get together. That's me. So, because I know how essential, I guess, the element of like your tribe and family and community is, and life is short. I could be selfish and say like some of that is for my child, but also some of that is for me too. Like I still need those elements as a 34-year-old woman, where I still feel like I have community and people that I connect with. Jaden, he goes to a private school. Part of me making sure that he has community is like investing money. Again, this is a controversial topic as well, but I wanted to be intentional about where he got his education from, the teachers who were pouring into him, who he was surrounding himself with, and like what was getting poured into his mind and body and heart space on the daily basis.
Wow. That's big.
Yeah.
But I remember reading a study that talked about parents investing in their kids early, as opposed to like college.
Yep.
And like we know there's a lot of scholarships for really good colleges, but and actually my wife was a big one who kind of opened my eyes to this, and she was I cannot remember the guy's name she was following. I know he's a politician now. Dang, I can't think what his name is, but you're awesome guy. He's a guy. I don't remember his name. But he was really bent on this point that if parents invest in their children early, when they're in elementary school, when they're in middle school, when it comes time for university level, you don't have to work as hard to try to get those scholarships for the kids. And
1,000%. And that's something that his father and I do agree on. Like, let's spend this money now. Let's put this effort in now, because the way and the resources that private schools have are, I just hate to say it, and this is from a former public school educator, they're unmatched. It's almost a disservice. My mom, she was a single mom, and I did not understand why she had me and my brother in a private school, and like money was so tight. And she was struggling to make ends meet sometimes by herself. And she was like, I need y'all to get a private school education. And I wanted to go to a public school with my friends in the neighborhood, and it was like a hard no. It was not until I got to college, I took the entrance exam, and it was local kids. We were all from the same county. We were going to the same school together. And they were put in remedial courses. You know, those courses that you don't even get a credit for. Like, you got to take remedial English and remedial math before you can take the real stuff. So now you're paying for a semester of not a real course, and then you're technically a whole semester behind in these specific subjects. I freaking landed in stats, too. At the time, I'm like, I want to be a kindergarten teacher. I don't need to take statistics, too. But it shone a light. It was like that dramatic, like, oh, like... Ariel, this is why your mom invested in your education right here. And I said, if and when I have a child, I will do the same thing.
And man, that's a really good point. I think if parents focus more on, and it doesn't have to always be academics in that way, but I think just focusing on learning our children and understanding like the best possible scenario for them. You know, and that
because it might not be a private school. It might be a Montessori setting. It might be a homeschool hybrid setting. But again, like learning like what is best for your kid.
And I don't think parents put enough, effort in that area. And there are a variety of different reasons why. You know, if I think about I didn't go to a private school, and I was definitely one of those kids who had to take a remedial English class, which was even
and probably not because. For me and what I've gotten to know of you, you're brilliant. The way that you like can communicate, the way that you can communicate and articulate things. But I bet you if you would have had just exposure to an AP course, an honors course, additional resources, you would not have been in remedial English.
Well, it became that. Let me make this... not that this is about me, but I actually did take a lot of advanced classes at a certain point, it just became all advanced classes, but it was just at a weird time for me. And I just really didn't care about things. I didn't take like the ACT seriously.
Fair.
It was a joke, you know, to me, and I wanted the approval point, so I didn't take it seriously. And I just, I'm going to bubble in answers, whatever. I spent more when I went to college, for sure. But in terms of like just being put in a better situation, I don't think parents consider that. I don't think parents, and I say this as a past educator, you know, and I taught middle school, I taught some elementary or fifth grade, if that's still considered elementary, and then high school. But the thing that I found most interesting is that parents were not, and I'm sorry, you good?
Yeah, I just burped and I wasn't didn't pick it up.
Like, I know I'm saying some profound stuff.
No, you're good. It was me. I was trying to.
No, I would see that parents would spend more of their finances on like these really short-term fixes. Like, okay, my child has low self-esteem, so I'm going to buy them some really nice shoes.
Let's say it.
I'm going to buy them some shoes, some really nice shoes. I ain't going to say Jordans because I got on some, so it's not because of I'm good, y'all. But parents would spend a lot of time in that area, and I would have a hard time just getting them on the phone. Like, I couldn't call them. I know when I was growing up, like, I was not afraid of getting a call home because I'm like, is somebody going to pick up? I'm like, it's like a 70-30 chance, you know? But I think if, like you said, you know, if parents put more time and energy into investing in their kid early and learning about what their child needs, they put their child they can put their child in a better situation.
Right.
And I think this is particularly interesting when it comes to single parents, because I know one of the hardest parts about being a single parent is the finances. You know, it's just financially being able to be there. My mom worked multiple jobs.
Yeah.
You know, and that became a big...
I'm a hustler, homie.
Man, like my mom was she was a super hustler.
Jaden told me, like, he was like, Mom, what are you doing? This was like 2 months ago, and I was like, I'm getting ready for an interview, bud. And he looked at me like he was a grown man and said, Mom, you really just need to focus on the job that you already have because you're doing too much already. But then a week later said he wanted to go on a cruise for Christmas or to Disneyland for his birthday. And I was like, buddy, this is why Mom does her bucket list of things that she does to make sure your quality of life is not altered because it's just me. But, I mean, shout out to all the single moms, man.
Yeah,
working multiple jobs. Let's just put that
not just single
there.
moms, you know, single dads too.
Single
because
dads too, facts.
Man, because I know a couple of single dads, and I'm like, man, because I feel like women are so much more complex than men. I feel that way. I know maybe that's not true, and somebody smarter than me will say, oh, that's not the case. But I feel like boys are really easy when they're young to kind of just interact with, and I feel like my little girl gives me the blues because like we're on two different wavelengths emotionally, and I think she's just much more developed emotionally than my son is, so I can get to him really, really easy, but her is like, dude, it's so difficult. So I'm like, we definitely got to shout out, you know, the single parent fellas out there who are taking care of business. But for any parent, you know, I think it's super important that we continue to invest in our children, because we're in a time when our child's attention is, for a lot of people, for a lot of companies, for a lot of organizations.
And that investment, can I just say, it might look different. It might not be just investing in their schools. Like, there was a time where I was worried that, like, Jaden was going to be the angry black kid because his parents weren't together and his dad didn't live. So, like, I had to invest in therapy.
How did that go?
It was good. We had a child, like a developmentally appropriate therapist, which that's what family therapists are. And she connected with Jaden on his level at the time. But I was just seeing certain, like, signs and traits, and I'm like, I don't want my son to grow up to be angry. Like, I know I can't control that, but if I can do something now along the way to help, again, that goes back to, like, I'm raising a good human, right? Like, overall big picture. So I had to invest in therapy a little for a while. And that also doesn't look like a phone call to his dad asking for money because I'm deciding our son needs therapy. Like, sometimes you're figuring it out.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's so important to have, you know, for me, this podcast, shameless plug, because when we can hear stories, you know, from different people who've experienced some of the challenges, some of the triumphs that we've faced, you know, a lot of times you can learn about things that you hadn't even considered. Like, I've never considered putting my son in therapy necessarily, or my daughter in therapy, because I'm like, we'll figure it out. But sometimes you won't. And
sometimes you won't.
I used to freaking hate this phrase that I used to hear all the time where I'm from, and it was like, oh, they'll catch on, they'll get it later. And it's like, no,
they may not.
They don't. I'm like, they don't just figure it out on their own all the time. You know, some people really do need, you know, someone to speak to. And I can revert this back to some parents who would say, you know, okay, I can raise this kid by myself, and I don't necessarily need this or this or this. And I'm like, well, before you make that statement, you know, first of all, you have to decide, is that pride? Is that your pride that's saying that? Or is that, you know, you seeing a situation and understanding all the different levels of what's going on psychologically and mentally and physically in your child? And I think we as parents got to put in some more work, because these devices are raising our kids, social media, the TV.
And sometimes it is harder to be a good parent. It, like,
all the time. It's difficult.
To discipline your child and put them on punishment and take away their games, their TV, their technology, their iPad. Hello, I'm in this season. Jaden has none of that right now. He just got TV back.
Okay, he's been
but
tripping.
He doesn't have, he's been Jaden Inc. But sometimes it's harder. Like, I had a moment where I was just like, Mom, I understand why there are trifling parents in the world. And I say this being, like, a former educator, and trifling in the sense of, like, there are some parents that just let their kids do whatever. There is no accountability there, right? But accountability takes time, effort, and energy. And when your cup as a human is low, and then you have to come home and find some way to fill up and parent, it is easier sometimes to be like, forget it, play the game, I don't care. Like, I know what you're doing. You're not going to be trying to make anything explode. You're in your room, like, whatever. But that accountability piece, it takes so much.
And even for two parents.
Effort.
Even for a house, like, because me and my wife, we do well, and I think we have really good relationships with our children. But life be lifing. Life be lifing, like, for real. And it's like we come home and it's like, dude, we just got off work. You know, we took you to school, picked you up from school, take you to soccer practice. It's like financially it's difficult, and then also, you know, just there's multiple relationships going on in our house at one time, and it's like my wife and I need to build our relationship, and there's sometimes we're just like, last night it's like, hey man, y'all, Jordan, the remote is right there. It's on you, champ. We gonna watch this over here. It's like, you can't even, like, just that accountability piece is super difficult, because
it's hard.
And it's simple stuff like that people don't really consider. Like, it's simple stuff like, what's the movie rated? You know, and it's like,
right.
All of that stuff is like, because my child caught one curse word on a it was a PG-13 movie. Like, it wasn't even hardcore, and she caught one word from it, and she never lost that word.
Held on to it.
And just she's just saying it in every context.
Can I commend you? And I don't think, like, you know, people talk about single parenting and blah, 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 and they can kind of create this, like, woe is me narrative. I commend parents who parent married or together, because that is a whole other ball game. And so I just want to take a moment and say, like, I'm giving you and your wife your flowers, because I always say God knew what he was doing when he switched up the order of my life. When he gave me Jaden pre-wedlock and let me be single for a bit, and he's now placed my partner in my life, I could not imagine navigating a relationship with another adult human, getting to know their needs, wants, desires, and supporting them as a partner. Then another human coming into this world, and now I am figuring out their needs, wants, and desires as a mom, while still attending to the needs, wants, and desires of my partner. And then potentially, like yourself, bringing in another kiddo to the picture. And like you said, there's relationship with kid A, relationship with kid B, and then a relationship. I would have lost my mind. Lost it and not been able to find it. So I am grateful for my story of it being me and Jaden, because
and you just gave me a topic for the next podcast, because I think that is a very interesting point, because marriage is not, and even if you're not married, like, two parents who continue to stay together and not get married,
same.
There's a whole different dynamic, and there's challenges on all levels, you know, and I think just the more that we educate ourselves, the more that we tell our stories, and the more that we put ourselves out there to learn more and to, you know, just accept that we don't have all the answers.
Right.
I think the more beneficial it's going to be for our kids and for our families in general. And I'm talking about all families, because a family or stable family is not just husband, wife, and kids.
1,000%.
A stable family can be a mother and her children, or a father and her children, or mother, non-biological parent,
grandmother,
vice versa, grandmother, exactly. So, you know, I think the more that we have these conversations, the more we put our children first in terms of, like, just development and all that jazz. The more we focus on that, I think the better off, you know, our kids are going to be.
Our goal is to raise good humans.
One piece of advice that you have for any single mother or single parent who's raising a child of the opposite sex. One piece of advice.
Oh, man. This reminds me of Jay Shetty. Do you listen to his podcast? He does this.
What does he look like? I don't remember names.
He does this at the end of his podcast, where he's like a mental health podcast.
Oh, what does this guy look like?
He's like, I think Jay is Indian. Jay, if you're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
Indian,
with like
I'm
blue
so
eyes or
sorry.
something like
yes,
that. Yeah,
and
I
has
was
the
watching
cutest
him.
wife.
I didn't see his wife.
Okay.
He's a handsome guy. He is a handsome guy.
Yes, he does this, but he's like got an accent, kind of like British.
Yeah.
You know
I definitely watched one of his podcasts yesterday. I didn't know that was his name, but yeah, he's dope.
He is dope. Okay, sorry, that moment
Goals.
reminded me.
No, that's all good.
No, that is goals. So when you asked me that question, he's like, if you have one piece of advice for whatever the topic is, what would it be? So I had a moment. All right, one piece of advice for a single parent raising a child of the opposite sex. I think it would kind of be something that we've already talked about is don't feel like you have to do everything on your own. It does not mean you're a bad parent. It does not mean you're incompetent or not capable. Like, you're almost doing your child a disservice when you put everything on your own shoulders.
Wow.
You can't. God didn't send you here to do everything on your own. Find your tribe. In your tribe, it might be your family. It may not be your family, but don't isolate yourself for yourself. Don't isolate your kids, because they need what the people who are close to you to have to offer, again, to help them be a great human.
For sure. Strong advice. We're going to close out. I appreciate you coming on to the show.
Thanks, Miles. This was great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you to everybody who's tuning in to the Regular People podcast, where we interview seemingly regular people who have amazing lifestyles and amazing stories that can both inspire and encourage everybody who's willing to hear. Stay tuned for the next episode, and we will see you soon. That was cool.
And that's a wrap.